right, so let me head on out. And I am going to reverse my camera. Okay, so, all right, so you should see my driveway and my beautiful old truck, Bessie. Do you see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so on my property, I have about a half acre. And I have, since we moved into this property, only planted in the ground native trees and shrubs.
You're on mute.
Let me see if I can exit for a second and still talk to her. Can you guys still see my yard?
No.
No, it's like, it's just
Okay.
your name.
All right. So I'm wondering if there's some kids who can't get into class, but I'm going to try to put back to Zoom. Okay. So can you guys see my yard now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So there's two kinds of trees. There's deciduous trees and coniferous trees. So these guys, this is a hazelnut, an American hazelnut. Do you guys like hazelnut? Anybody like hazelnut coffee and hazelnut candy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually the tree that those come off of. It's a shrub, and it is a deciduous shrub. So what that means is that all these leaves here fall off. They change color and fall off in the fall, and then come back in the spring. This is a white pine. So we can figure out white pines from red pines because white pines have 3 to 5 needles per bunch. So can you guys kind of see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can leave it apart. Okay. So this is deadfall from the most current storm. But what storms also do is they bring down limbs that have already died, just like this one here. Okay. So see how these are already kind of brittle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they come right off, right? So they all come right off. So the thing is that in coniferous trees, which are all the pine trees and the spruces, the leaves, the needles, which are modified leaves, don't come off all of them at once every season. But look at my yard. What do you see on the ground?
Lots of like leaves and needles.
Nice up and close. What do you see?
Pine needles?
Yeah.
Pine needles. And the thing is, let me show you my deck because it's much easier to see on my deck or on my patio. As you look here, see those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My husband, we had a lot of wind here, but look where the wind didn't reach. What's that covered with?
Pine needles.
Pine needles. So what we kind of find out is that pine needles, coniferous trees, don't necessarily never lose their limbs or never lose their leaves. They just selectively replace some of their needles every year, with one exception of tree. And you have 2 of them on the Upton campus. So there is a group of trees called the tamaracks and the larches. And you have 2 American larches that are on the little back drive that goes by the tennis court, right to your right. So you're going to see those pine trees become completely devoid of any needles at all. Larches and tamaracks, which are in bogs, are the only deciduous coniferous trees. So the rest of them, like these spruce, see how pretty those are? Those will keep their needles all year long, and they don't replace them at the same rate that the white pines do. And then this tree here is an eastern redbud. So let's talk a little bit about how the leaves come off and what that process is called. So if the leaves are super healthy in the middle of summer, what color are they?
Green.
Green. So what is the only pigment that their energy gathering chloroplasts don't absorb?
Winter.
What color do you see?
Orange. Wait,
Green.
red.
Green, right?
Yeah.
So in the summer, like this is a shrub. This is a winterberry. its leaves are still green, right?
Yeah.
So the only color that they don't absorb is green.
Oh.
Because you see it. Yeah, see? So when I do chlorophyll A in the lab, I have a green light in my background, and it's actually a green light bulb because that won't degrade the chlorophyll. So as it turns out, these trees and shrubs are pretty smart, and they don't just have chlorophyll A. So like the grass, see our grass here? What color is it?
Green.
Green. So what color does it not absorb?
Green.
Green.
Green. Okay. So in addition, this is a staghorn sumac. And oops, sorry about that. I don't know why I did that. Okay. So let's look at its fronds here. It has modified leaves. So what color are those?
Red.
Kind of a red-orange, right? So it turns out that chlorophyll A needs some helper pigments. And those helper pigments shield it from really high light. And they're kind of like a second job. So most adults have one full job, and then some of us, and we use that second job to help with our income. Well, in trees, they use accessory pigments to help with gathering light so they don't lose any, because they can't walk around where the light's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not modal. They can't move. So they have to do everything they can with what they got. And so they use different sets of pigments. In the case of red orange leaves, those primary pigments are called carotenoids.
Mm-hmm.
And in algae, they make algae appear kind of burgundy or red. And in trees that are yellow, and I'm going to walk around and show you some yellow trees, and trees that are yellow, those pigments are called xanthophyll. Hi, Mrs. Keatro.
Hi there, real quick. We get called back to the doctor.
Oh, okay. Well, Alec and Kathleen are on the line, and we're talking about what pigments are in plants
Okay.
and how we know what they are by the time they start coming off the trees. And so, hey guys, tell Mrs. Keatro what pigments, what color green leaves do not absorb.
Green.
Green, very good.
All right.
So,
Hey guys, this is your project adaptations. If you guys are doing forest, here's some stuff we're talking about.
yeah. So these trees, what color are those?
Yellow.
Yellow. And that is a sugar maple. All right. Sugar maples have mostly xanthophylls. That starts with an X, xanthophyll, and those make them yellow. So different plants have different mixes of pigments, and that's part of how we ID them. Now, this is kind of a cool plant. This is just like that other one out back, but my front yard is more exposed than my backyard. This is that same plant that just had green leaves out back, but this is a girl plant. And hopefully you can see this. Can you see what that is? What is that?
It's a berry. Wait.
It's a berry. So my birds, I have a lot of birds, and hopefully we're going to go back and see some of them. So it turns out that some trees have boys and girls on the same tree, and some trees have girl trees and boy trees. These are called monoecious. And so there's a male and a female. The ones with the berries are females. Now, sometimes, like at Upton, you don't have near the bird populations that I do. So those shrubs at Upton over to the left of the band room, right where's the driveway that comes by where the soccer and the football field is, those trees are all 3 of the 4 female, and they're covered with red berries because there aren't as many birds there. Dr. Ann has a lot of birds, and I have a lot of bird feeders, and I have a lot of different birds that use the food in my feeders. So I have suet feeders, and I have birdseed feeders, and then I have tons and tons of plants that my birds can live in. So they can live in trees. So this is another sugar maple. So do you remember what this pigment's called? The yellow pigment starts with what letter?
X? No.
X. Excellent. So this is
X.
xanthophylls. These are xanthophylls. And then below it, this is zigzag solidago. So those same birds When my bird seed runs out sometimes because it's cold and I don't want to fill it, these seeds are what the birds are going to eat all winter long. And then insects will actually live in the stems of these plants too. So they're really important to insect populations. So what happens in these deciduous trees is that unlike the coniferous trees that kind of lose their needles either a few at a time like in the white pine or all at once like in the larches, is that these leaves actually become detached from the tree probably about a month ago. And see how easy, I just pulled one of these out. So it'll come right off. Normally with the tree, you have to pull a leaf off, right? These just snap right off. And that's because they're actually already separated from the tree. So they turn yellow because they're not getting food anymore from the tree. So the chlorophyll A is the first pigment to die in the fall. And then that leaves these yellows and these reds from these other from the other pigments, the accessory pigments. And that's why our colors get so pretty in the fall. Now, if we have a nice killing frost early October, early mid-October, then our colors happen all at once because the leaves abscise from the tree all at once. But if we don't have a super hard freeze, then what happens is different trees kind of drop their leaves at different times, and it's pretty, but it's not that pretty, right? This is a pin oak. Can you see that? How is that different from the trees that we just looked at?
It seems a lot thinner.
So what color are these leaves?
Brown. I think.
Brown. So pin oaks have more carotenoid in their leaves, but they also, most oaks don't drop their leaves like some of the other trees do. They often hang on for a good part of the winter. And because of that, they're kind of more thick leaves. They're thicker, more what we call robust leaves. They're super important for animals that live down the ground. And in streams, they're super important for the ecology of streams. So oak trees will support more native insects than any other tree species in North America. So oaks have been around a very long time. They're old trees, they're slow growing trees, and they will support up to like 400 different species of moths and insects. Is that pretty amazing?
Yeah.
So do you know in North America how many insects are on Japanese maples?
No.
What do you think, Catalina? Can you see my hand?
0.
Zero. And if you look at my, I happen to have, I only plant natives in the ground, but I plant flowers in pots. And this is a fuchsia. And what do you notice about these leaves on my fuchsia? Are there any insect bite marks?
Yes.
Not too many. Not a whole lot. So if I grab one of my leaves off of my red bud here, what do you think about this leaf? I have to make sure I can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah.
See how it's like half a leaf?
Yeah.
Because I had to share that with insects that use the red bud. So the cultivar plants have almost 0 animals that use them, and our trees have dozens. Now here's something I want to show you. I actually have a bee house. This is its first year, and if you look down here at the bottom,
Yeah.
can you see that? Can you see that hole? Some of the holes are filled up with like solid stuff.
Yeah.
So those bees put their one larva, they're solitary bees. Most of our pollinators are not honeybees like you see in like Winnie the Pooh. These are solitary bees. They don't sting hardly ever, and they only put one larvae in one small hole, and they usually reproduce in trees. And so I have 3 or 4 of those around my house. They put the mama bee put her larvae there. That larvae will go the entire winter and will come out as an adult in the spring. And there's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 that are filled in there, and I'll clean that out in the, or like probably about May, after the first of those have come out. And then next year it'll be open for other bees to use. So there's not enough habitat. We don't have enough habitat. So what I'm going to do here, so I have a whole bunch of plants here, and see all these guys here?
Yeah.
These are all different native plants. So do you guys like butterflies?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this plant here that I'm showing you, that is Golden Alexander. It's the host plant for the black swallowtail. And this other plant, this tall one with the leaves there, those leaves fill with water. It's called a cup plant. And a lot of insects and birds will get their water out of those leaves. They're natives if I don't have a bird bath out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to stand here. Can you guys see my bird feeder there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stand here for a couple minutes. It turns out that in the last week or so, most of the migrating birds have switched places. So are you guys seeing any robins at all?
No.
No robins left, right? So all the robins have migrated south. Most of the other, like I'm seeing a few, the eastern goldfinch, some of those migrate and some stick around, but there have been a couple, 3 species that are only here in the winter. One of them is called a titmouse, has a little gray tuft of feathers on the top of its head, and the other is a junco. And my yard is all of a sudden filled with juncos and titmice. And then there's the Carolina, the nuthatch, which I have all year round to some extent, but they're a lot more active right now. And I have chickadees too. I'm not seeing any wrens either. It looks like most of my wrens have moved out too. So they've all headed south to be in warmer places. And then these birds that I'm seeing now came south from up in Canada. So they're pretty hungry. They've been migrating for a few weeks now. And so they're going to hang around all winter long. So do either of you guys like to watch birds?
Sometimes.
Kind of.
Sometimes. So in about a month, I'm going to do something called Feeder Watch, and I'll invite you guys to join me to do that one afternoon. And what I have to do is just watch my bird feeders, and I make a list, not of how many birds I see them coming in now. Yeah, see? So that one that's on there now is a chickadee. He just left and his mate followed him. So if I don't move, they'll get pretty comfortable and they'll just start flying into my bird feeder. But Feeder Watch is something that University of Cornell puts on every year, and it allows us to census birds from all over the U.S. And they don't want to know how many of each kind; they just want to know how many kinds. And when we go out in spring for upstream, hopefully I'll be able to show you that, because when we do bugs in the stream and algae, we don't care how many, we only care what kinds we find. It's called a qualitative index. So for our bird population in the United States is down about 70% from 40 years ago. So, well, actually 50 years ago. 1970 to now, it's down about 70%. Why do you think that might be? Well, what are you guys sitting in?
A house.
Houses. And what do you drive on?
Roads.
And where do you go to play soccer?
Field.
Yeah.
Soccer fields, right?
Yeah.
So where do you go to watch football?
Football fields.
Football field. Where do you go to get groceries?
Store.
Okay. So in all of those places that you're at, do any of those places have a ton of trees?
No.
Not really.
And where do you think these birds live?
In trees.
In trees and in native shrubs. So they don't have anywhere to live. And as it turns out, and I'm going to send you guys a link through Mrs. Kitzrow to watch, I might be able to I'm recording this and I might be able to put it in the notes for this recording, but there is a really cool guy. His name is Dr. Doug Tallamy, and he does insects. He's an entomologist. And it turns out that what can you tell what's in my bird feeders?
Well,
I can get a little closer. So let me show you. All of my bird feeders have about the same thing. So what is that?
Seeds.
Seed. And it's a special seed for Midwest birds. So for our state. So these birds can eat that seed, or they can eat this seed. This is Queen of the Prairie, and all these are seed heads. Okay. But their babies can't. What do you think baby birds eat in the summer, spring and summer?
Worms.
kind of like, yeah,
No, wait.
worms. And
Some
stuff.
worms. Robins are going to eat worms. What's the other major food that birds are going to eat in the spring and the summer?
Insects.
Insects, and a particular kind of insect. There's one special kind of insect that almost all baby birds in the songbird division eat. And what is that? What's our state insect?
Oh wait, no.
What's our state butterfly right now? Well, let me give you a hint. I have a picture of one in the back, or a sculpture of one in the back of my house.
Monarch butterflies.
Monarch butterfly. So monarch butterflies, what are their babies called? What's the life stage called? What do you think, Alex?
It's like on the tip of my tongue. I forget though.
Well, remember they come from cocoons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are caterpillars.
Oh wait, caterpillars.
Caterpillars, yeah. So they're caterpillars. See how the birds, now that I've backed off a little bit, see how they're all coming back to the bird feeder? Most of those are there's a nuthatch there and a chickadee. So they eat caterpillars. Baby birds almost exclusively eat caterpillars. So how many insects did I say use the red maple, the Japanese red maple?
0.
0. How many insects use lilacs, which are from France and Europe?
0.
0. So how many did I say that the oak tree lived in the oak tree? About-ish? About 400, right?
Oh.
Oh, and I have service berries on my property. That was one of the trees that I walked by that doesn't have any leaves anymore. Service berries have 20 to 30. The next tree that's next to an oak tree that has the most insect larvae is a cherry tree. Not a cherry tree with cherries we eat, but a wild cherry. And I have a bunch of those on my property. So cherry trees have, I think, around 100 insects that use them as a host. So if I have Japanese maple and Norway spruce, and I have really pretty trees like ginkgos from Japan, how many birds do you think are going to be able to nest in my yard?
Like 0.
About 0. And so I have 13 species of trees on my property that are native, along with some that were planted before I got here. And I have to admit, I did plant those spruce and they're native to Colorado. And I have about 14 species of shrub, and I have about 30 to 40 species of what we call perennial or forbs. So do you think I have a lot of nesting birds in my yard? I do. And how do you think I know that? Like, if I haven't seen the nest, how would I know I had a lot of nesting birds?
Because like the seed and is like running out, and you're seeing like
Okay. So the feeders are getting used. That's going to be what the adults eat. And they're going to be, you know, picking up caterpillars, which is going to limit the damage to my trees. So all I see is a little bit of damage, not a ton. But you know what else I see? I see fledgling birds. So fledgling birds are like teenagers. So do you guys have older brothers and sisters?
No.
No.
No? So sometimes teenagers can get a little crazy. And fledgling birds are kind of like that. So they don't know how to fly into a feeder. They don't know how to share. They don't know how to land well. And so you see them, you'll see 5 or 6 from the same nest fly around and knock each other off of the bird feeder, and they beg from mom and dad for about 6 weeks. So they can't figure out how to use the bird feeder, but they know they should be eating bird seed. So what they'll do is they'll fly into a limb very near the feeder and they'll cry for mom, and there'll be about 6 to 8 at any one time of different species begging for mom to feed them right after they've left the nest. So I see those birds, and I've seen chickadees and I've seen sparrows. I have 2 or 3 species of sparrows. I've seen wrens. They're a little harder to find because they're tiny and they're kind of skittish. And I've seen woodpeckers. I have downy woodpeckers on my property, and I've seen downy woodpecker fledglings as well. So I know that I have enough habitat, that these birds are using my yard for habitat. So hopefully next time we can, I can be either at Upton and walk the trails and have somebody tape me while I'm cleaning out bird boxes, or I'm going to be on my microscope at my lab. So so anyway, so do you guys have any questions for me about songbirds or about the kinds of things that they like to eat?
Not really.
No,
No?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, did you have a little bit of fun for a half hour?
Yeah.
Cool beans. All right. So UpStream Club is every Monday, 3:30 to 4. If you miss one, you can watch the taping on my YouTube channel. And Mrs. Keatrow and your teachers have that link. And I hope to see you next week. And I'll be beamed into your classroom again on November 23rd, right before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Wait,
We'll
I
see
have
you
a quick
guys.
question.
Oh, sure. Sure.
What's your YouTube channel called?
It's the name of my company. So all you have to do is search on Phycotech Inc. PHYCOTECH Inc. And you'll find me.
Okay.
Okay. If you have any questions, ask Mrs. Keatrow and she can help you get there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you later, guys.